In Central Africa, Chad's military ruler, Mahamat Idriss Deby, on Friday visited a hospital and a protest-hit district of N'Djamena after a day of unprecedented violence that left around 50 people dead in the capital and elsewhere. Tensions eased on Friday after Chad's ruling junta announced an overnight curfew on Thursday following fatal clashes earlier in the day between police and demonstrators protesting the military's grip on power. The violence came on the heels of a national forum organized by Deby that extended his military government's grip on power beyond Thursday's deadline. Deby, a 38-year-old five-star general, has been in power since his father, longtime military president Idriss Deby Itno, was killed in an operation against rebels in April 2021. Let's also tell you that there has been international condemnation of the recent violence in Chad, where at least 50 protesters were killed and 300 others wounded in pro-democracy protests. The UN, the EU and the United States have called for all parties to de-escalate, but members of the opposition have vowed to keep protesting. In an unusual move, the US Embassy in Chad not only issued a statement condemning Thursday's violence, but also posted a photo on its social media channels showing the ambassador kneeling next to bloodied clothes on the street. This came after people dressed as civilians cleared checkpoints and killed 4 people outside the embassy gates. A curfew is in place in the capital in N'Djamena and 3 other towns where protests took place. In the meantime, Chadian authorities on Thursday suspended 7 political parties accused of disturbance of public order and security that may undermine the security of the state and the proper functioning of Republican institutions. The suspension, which is to last for 3 months, follows bloody clashes between security forces and demonstrators protesting the extension of the transition. According to the decree, the headquarters of the suspended parties will be closed during the entire period of the ban. The decree indicated that the movement called Wakit Tama, which gathers opposition political parties and associations, is also outlawed across the entire country. The banned parties had called for a nationwide protest against the extension for 24 additional months of the transition led by the son of late President Idriss Deby. Joining me now to discuss the security situation in Chad is Ndolembai Njesada, Vice President of the Transformers Party in Chad. Glad to have you on the news. About 50 people have been allegedly killed in the demonstrations which occurred on the date when the military originally promised it would cede power to civilians. Would you say that Chadians are fed up with the country's continued military rule?
Thanks for having me, and let's get the statistics straight. I think it's over 100 people that have been killed. And asking me if the Chadian people are fed up with the country's continued military rule is an understatement. Chad has been ruled by the military for the last 40 years, and yet Chadians do not have running water, Chadians do not have electricity, Chadians do not have access to internet. It's a very primitive situation that many of the Chadian population lived in. So it is about time to move to a real democracy. In fact, when this group of military took power after the death of Deby's father, they promised to hand over the power after 18 months to a civilian in order to organize the election. Yesterday was exactly 18 months of transition by the military, and yet they have not handed over the power. And what most of us are asking is for the last general, Mahamat Idriss Deby, to hand power to the civilian in order for the civilian to organize the election. He's holding on to the power just like his father has done in the name of whatever they know, and handing over to him and doing all of this without the people of Chad will not work. So we're calling upon him to hand over the power. And as you can see, people are fed up. People are upset because their situation is worsening every day. So they need to hand over the power to the civilian in order to reorganize the country.
How sustained is the peace around the areas where the protests held yesterday?
In fact, from yesterday to today, military been going house to house this morning, brutalizing people, arresting people, and many of us are living in clandestinity simply because our life is on the table, simply because we are asking for democracy. Democracy is the government, is the power of the people, by the people, for the people, and we are the people. As you can see, the majority of the people is out asking for justice and equality. Those are the only two things that people are asking. And yet what they met in return is firearms, bullets, real bullets, death. And they don't even let people to carry their death. As you mentioned it earlier, in the premises of the US Embassy, one military guy dressed in civilian clothes came and pulled out his gun and assassinated two of our militants in front of the US Embassy. And the ambassador came out and noticed what had happened. So this is a very barbaric time that we live in Chad. And as I call it, we're in the modern Wild West in Chad, in the Central Africa region of Chad. And it's very, very regressive in democracy. So it's time for us to move forward and to put aside all these blessing in the name of the Father, the Son, but without the people as they are doing it without us, in order to really unify our energy to get to a new departure. But by doing so, military have to get back to what they do best, keep the country safe, and let the economic development and the rebuilding of the country to the hand of the civilian who know how to do this.
There's been reaction across the world. The African Union chair has denounced what has been described as the repression of demonstrations by the junta. The UN has also called for investigation into the deaths. So what more would you want from international community? How would you react to the responses that they've given so far?
Calling for investigation or for scaling down violence, it's not a solution that the Chadian people need. I remember vividly about 18 months ago when the African Union and the European Union, represented by Macron, came and blessed this coup by not calling it a coup. And Macron has clearly said that he wasn't there to bless a dynastic succession, and that he will do what he into his power to make sure that at the end of 18 months, the military council team hand power to the civilian. This has been 18 months plus 24 hours. We are not expecting France to do a miracle in Chad. Reason why Chadians took their matter in their own hands. The African Union should not be just giving communication announcement. They need to take severe sanction against those who are leading the country currently. In fact, as you showed it even earlier, people have died, and the Mahamat Idriss Deby was more preoccupied by the building that were vandalized by the protesters than the life of Chadian that have been lost. His first reaction should be addressing the parents of those who lost their dearest one, but that didn't matter to him. He went to see those who are in the hospital. He went to see the political parties' offices that have been vandalized, but didn't say a word about those who lost their life. We do not have a machine of life fabrication. Those are lives that we'll never get back because of his lack of holding up to his words. And as an officer, you have to be a man of your word. Saying that 18 months from now, I will leave the power, then you have to hold up to it, regardless of what people will tell you. That's what you said. In order to respect you as an officer, you need to hold up to your words.
All right, you said what some of the actions that you expect to see. What immediate response will bring some sort of reprieve for the people and set the pace for the possibility of conversation with the junta to bring about dialogue?
The 15 generals, 14 of them have been sent back to the military camp. There is only one that is causing the problem, and that only one is Mahamat Idriss Deby. He just needs to hand over the power to a civilian and say, okay, I'm done with my 18 months mission. Let's hand it over to a civilian team that will carry on the country to a fair election in the next whatever term that will be defined. But he sent his 14 other generals and remain as the president of the transition for the next 24 months, that he will be organizing the election and will be also a candidate to the election. Well, let's be honest, he cannot be judged and at the same time be also
the jury.
He cannot be a player and at the same time a referee, as we like to say. So he needs to either, if he wants to run for the election, he needs to hand over the power. If he does not want to run for the election, he has to keep up with his word by the end of the 18 months.
Ndolembai,
hand over the power.
I mean, unfortunately, that's the much time will permit us. I will hope to circle back to you for updating what's happening in Chad. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you so much.